Greetings to everyone. This is a continuation of the story, where Naruto gets a second chance, but in the sum of a girl. Before the start of the video, subscribe to the channel and like it, it's very important for me. Also you can subscribe on my Boosty where I release exclusive content. Thank you, enjoy watching. Chapter 6. Distribution and Test. Our joint arrival at the academy lifted my spirits because it provoked quite a strong reaction from those around me, as did my new image. I was pleased. It was not in vain that I spent so much time shopping yesterday. True, the appraising and hostile glances of my classmates bothered me, but the presence of Sasuke in close proximity did a good job of keeping them at bay. But the male part of the class appreciated my efforts as they should. I can proudly say, I managed to make even Shikamaru wake up. Chuji dropped the chip and Akamaru barked in approval as Kiba scraped his jaw off the floor. Yes, even Shino did not remain indifferent. But Sasuke was very dissatisfied, as evidenced by his oppressive aura and icy gaze directed at the others. And I should already get used to the fact that I never go unnoticed. In the past world it was simpler. There the guys treated me as a comrade in arms, leaving pink snot in the past. The war influenced us too much. Here in this regard it is worse. In front of me are not small children or adults who have seen a lot of shinobi. In front of me are teenagers with hormones that have just begun to play. However, it is unlikely that the Uchiha will accept such an explanation. For him, everything is simple. If they set their sights on him, they will kill him. It is urgent to transfer his attention to something else, otherwise blood will be shed. While I was feverishly thinking about how to distract Sasuke, Iruka-sensei came and ordered everyone to take their seats. As a result, the problem resolved itself. The distribution among teams went as expected. We again became team number 7 with the same composition. The only thing is that, apparently, we will have 2, or even 3 sensei, although only Kakashi-sensei was officially appointed. Why did I decide this? It's simple. Kakashi-sensei was late, and Rin-san came to pick us up, dragging 2 overaged idiots by the ears, Obito and Kakashi-sensei. It looked quite comical, especially their bickering. It was unusual to see these two in such a role. I'm used to Kakashi-sensei being an unsociable and silent type who constantly reads Jiraiya's books. I also met Obito there as an adult, and he was already a rather gloomy man then. I had never met Rin-san at all and knew only from stories. So it was fun to watch their behavior. Although the main fun began when they dragged us onto the roof and forced us to introduce ourselves. Sweet, blushing girl Sakura, who categorically says that she does not like me, only caused annoyance. I knew this would happen, but it's still unpleasant. But Sasuke, sensing my mood, tensed up and had to squeeze his elbow reassuringly. Unfortunately for us, Obito noticed this. His dumbfounded face was, of course, funny, but what followed next bothered me. You, stuttering and pointing a finger in our direction, Obito looked at us in shock. And how long? Rin-san smiled softly, and I remembered that this sweet woman often stayed with me in childhood. I remember the local me considered her another sister. Nora became much closer to her than her blood sister. Fun. I wonder how long memories like this will keep popping up for me, and at the most inopportune times. About a month more. Kurama yawned lazily in his subconscious. I artificially delayed the complete merging of memory. Too dangerous. And anticipating your question, Red chuckled mockingly. Because of his Sharingan, the Uchiha does not have such a problem. His consciousness is accustomed to quickly filtering information. He independently, albeit mostly intuitively, did something similar with his memory. Therefore, do not be nervous and answer the questions very honestly. Your future mentors will see through your lies sooner or later. It's been 1.5 years now, Having decided to follow the advice of my red-haired friend, I responded very honestly, and I didn't lie. Well, as for what is not in this world, why nitpick about the little things? The answer we received was shocked silence. Rin-san was shocked and froze. Obito widened his eyes at us and silently opened his mouth. Kakashi-sensei's eyes simply reflected shock. It seems that we have completely broken someone's entire understanding of the world and us in particular. I wonder what our fathers will do when such details are brought to them. I'm generally silent about how the mothers will react. Emma, Kakashi-sensei was the first to come to his senses and asked with some hope, maybe we can continue? Certainly. I gave him a joyful smile and said with vindictive pleasure, my name is Namikaze Naruto, but that's it for now. At these words we innocently bat our eyes and exchanged glances with Sasuke, whose corner of his lips began to twitch. We will completely forget about Kakashi-sensei, Rin-san and Obito. Their faces will forever remain in our memory. I like a lot of things and don't like a lot of things. I value my friends and family. I hate being late. With these words, I tried to copy Bachan's smile when she is dissatisfied with something. A terrible sight, I'll tell you, and released a little ki. Hobby workout. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke picked up the baton. Only his look and cold voice clearly hinted that he was not happy with this interrogation. There are few things I love and few things I like. I appreciate my loved ones. Hobby workout. Well, here we are, meeting you. Rin-sen smiled welcomingly and added much more menacingly, Kakashi. Eh? Oh yes, Kakashi-sensei nodded, casting a cautious glance at his teammate and wife of his best friend. I was glad to meet you, children, and now we can begin the test that will show whether you can become a shinobi or return back to the academy. To the academy? Sakura's indignant scream was heard on the other side of Konoha. Yes, to the academy, Kakashi-sensei responded calmly. The test will be carried out in an hour at the 7th training ground. A slight nod, and all three of our conditional mentors disappear. Went, I calmly suggest to the guys. I received dissatisfied statements from Sakura in response, but her indignation is stopped by Sasuke's icy look and a short nod already addressed to me. We got to the training ground quickly and without unnecessary conversations. But if Sasuke and I didn't need words, understanding each other perfectly well even without it, then Sakura simply sulked at us all the way. It will be hard with her. I had already forgotten that she was like this as a child. It was later, having experienced so many things and, most importantly, the war, that she became more tolerant, but when she was little she was still such a thorn. Although then I myself was no better, and how could Sasuke put up with us? You're on time. It was with these words that Kakashi met us at training ground number 7. A familiar place, by the way, do you remember, many years ago, right here, or, more correctly, in that world at the same training ground? We became team number 7 for the first time after passing the bell test. It was a fun time, because we were children then. Children who, despite their difficult fate, have not yet encountered, and therefore did not know, all the difficulties in the shinobi world. Children who looked at the world with eyes full of naive faith. Time was inexorable, and we changed in many ways. Even I did not remain the same. How long ago it was, but it feels like just yesterday. Naruto, stop philosophizing, Kurama said grumpily. Have you forgotten that you still have to take this teamwork test? And added much more cheerfully, just look at Sasuke's doomed look. He says with all his appearance that he wants to kill Haruno. I wouldn't mind burying this kind of Sakura somewhere. I sighed doomedly, simultaneously listening to Kakashi-sensei's explanations about the test and trying to understand where he put his two friends. There was no point in particularly listening to his speech. He still didn't say anything new. Yes, this test is, in principle, quite standard. I remember that even the Ero-sanin and Bei-chan went through it. But let's not talk about sad things. Better tell me where Obito and Rin-san could have gone. They most likely went to report to the yondaime. Kurama answered my question and finished mockingly, so prepared to be interrogated upon arrival. Calm down, I snorted in response. He won't do anything to me. There is nothing reprehensible in the fact that I am dating Sasuke. On the contrary, it is beneficial for both families. The only thing that can raise a question is that I didn't admit it right away and why they didn't notice it themselves. But here you can always shed a tear and put pressure on the fact that they weren't interested in me. It might work, Kurama responded thoughtfully. Your father is here, he's just disappointed in you, but he loves you in his own way. Yes, and tears are a terrible weapon, Kurama shuddered. Especially in your hands, I remember, even the Uchiha couldn't do anything against them. And almost inaudibly, as do I, by the way. With difficulty she suppressed the now inappropriate smile and turned her attention to Kakashi-sensei, who was already finishing his speech. At that moment, he was just about to finish the explanations, which no one except Sakura was listening to, and announced the start of the test. Started Kakashi-sensei finished looking at us, and not seeing joy in our eyes. The sensei's heavy sigh finally convinced me that he was not at all happy with his appointment, but he had no choice. Well, what can I say about our passing the test? It wasn't particularly difficult, for us. But we knew what his secret was. Therefore, as soon as Kakashi-sensei was out of sight, they began to develop a plan. However, it was not complicated, but it required coordinated work and was offensively simple. It was more difficult to negotiate with Sakura so that she would begin to act together with us. But Sasuke handled this perfectly, though now I owe him a wish. But what can't you do for the sake of a common cause? And so the three of us went to attack Kakashi-sensei. Of course, none of us had the desire to attack head-on, but to use traps. In general, with great effort, by the end of the time allotted to us, we were able to drive him into a pre-prepared place. We didn't use anything supernatural, we just created a trap with explosive seals. They were supposed to work as soon as someone fell into their field of action. Thanks to Sasuke's accuracy and his coordinated work with my clones, the one who got caught turned out to be Sensei. The trigger trap did not kill the experienced Jounin, but it was able to beat him up, and most importantly, thanks to Sakura's calculations and Sasuke's and my experience, we were able to predict where the Sensei would move from the explosion, and she and I settled there. The kunai I threw quite easily cut off the bells from the belt of the Jounin who was not expecting an attack, and my clones rushing to attack distracted Sakura from catching them. As a result, we completed the task and were ready with Sasuke to prove that we had passed the test together, and therefore deserved to become a team. But the local Kakashi-sensei turned out to be much more accommodating. He did not waste his or our time on unnecessary double checks, and declared that we had passed. True, when he said this, he looked at Sakura strangely, but it was clear she did not fit into our team. The way we worked and the way Sakura worked with us stood out too well. The difference was great. An experienced Jounin and ANBU officer could not help but notice such a discrepancy. I have a feeling Sakura is in for some interesting times. Chapter 7. What will we do? POV Kakashi. I remember very well how Minato-sensei called me to him, and when I appeared he pleased me with the news that I was becoming the mentor of Team Number 7, which included his daughter and Itachi-kun's brother. No, I never had anything against Naruto herself. She was a quiet, sweet and modest girl, sometimes even too quiet. As far as I know, she was fond of Irajutsu, although she had no special achievements. I also had nothing against Sasuke, whom I knew quite well and even attended some of his training sessions with Raiden a couple of times. He was a smart and talented guy, although a little self-confident, but this flaw can be corrected. For me it was corrected. The main thing is that he does not pay too high a price for this. The third member of the team, a certain Haruno Sakura, also did not raise any special questions, an ordinary clanless kunoichi, who got into that class only thanks to Inoichi-san's petition and her perseverance. But in general, apart from a phenomenal memory, a small amount of chakra and good control, nothing stood out, solid average. But the feeling that not everything is so simple did not leave me throughout the entire conversation. Particularly surprising was the sensei's request to keep an eye on his daughter and Sasuke. Not just watch, but follow. I was surprised and didn't understand what was going on, but I agreed. In the end, it wasn't difficult for me. If only I knew what I signed up for. I would think 100 times whether to agree or not. My agreement caused a strange relief in the sensei, which surprised me even more. What happened to make sensei so worried? No, of course, he always worried about his family, but still, such behavior is not typical for him. Not to mention the direct order to monitor the children and the fact that my former teammates were assigned to help me. Yes, we haven't worked as a whole team for 10 years. I'm starting to like it less and less. Why such measures? But naturally, no one began to answer my questions. I could only hope that nothing terrible would happen during this time. Nothing really terrible happened. I just found out that Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke are a couple. No, I do not mind. If they want to meet, let them meet, but why didn't anyone know about it? They are not ordinary children. Even if they are not the first heirs, they still keep an eye on them. Not to mention the fact that all three of us are quite frequent guests at the sensei's house and didn't know or notice anything. Well, it doesn't happen like that. Although, maybe it was because of this that sensei ordered to monitor them? And what? Quite an explanation. They're not even 13. Hormones play, anything is possible, so caring fathers play it safe. Why not an explanation? But you still need to check with the sensei. So, we end the conversation and agree on the division of responsibilities. Rin, as a beloved student, will probably be able to demand an answer from Minato-sensei, and Obito, well, he is attached to Rin, and he will be able to find out something from Fugaku-san. I'm sure I can handle the test myself. As time has shown, it was not I who passed the test, but the children. I don't know why Naruto is considered untalented and Sasuke is not considered Itachi's rival, but I would argue with these statements. They both worked in harmony, and although they did not demonstrate the execution of complex techniques, even what they demonstrated was amazing. All movements and techniques are perfected. There was determination in their eyes, they did not hesitate or doubt for a moment. Yes, they are still far from ideal, but they did not show the level of a genin. I would give the Chunin without hesitation. However, even in this team there were some buts. Haruno Sakura, a girl with top marks in theory and slightly worse in practice, is described as a smart and determined girl in the dossier. Perhaps some of all of the above is present in her, but as soon as Sasuke gets into her field of vision, she turns into a brainless chicken. Is this why I angered you, Kami-sama? How can I work with this girl? It is unlikely that she will accept that she is weaker than Naruto, but she may not want to listen to advice. Now she is ballast, especially considering the attitude of the other two team members. During the test it showed itself, not at all. Her teammates did all the work. I hope Rin can find a common language with her and help her decide. Although, if you remember how she treated Naruto, it will be difficult. Rin really doesn't like it when someone speaks badly about her little sister. And Sakura not only responded, but also behaves inappropriately. I got a tough team. Well, at least you won't be able to go gray prematurely. NPOV Kakashi.POV Rin. The conversation on the roof left a rather strange feeling in my soul. It seemed that the children sitting on the roof were much older than they looked. Looks and gestures, everything shows their self-confidence, and if for Sasuke this is normal, he has always been a rather self-confident boy, then for Naruto it is not. I know her well. Only in early childhood was she so smiling and open, but even then she did not have such confidence in her abilities. Over time, the smile faded, the cheerful sparkles disappeared from her eyes, and she herself began to become more and more inconspicuous, more and more insecure and timid. It was painful for me to watch such changes, but I could not intervene. At that time, our team was helping Minato-sensei restore order and practically did not appear in the village. By the time I had the opportunity to talk to her, it was already too late. Naruto closed herself in her shell, and all my attempts ran into a blank wall. Today I saw a confident kunoichi who knows her worth. And baby Sasuke? A boy who could not grow up, he always looked confident, even too much. But if earlier all this caused affection on the principle of, "What a cute boy," now I would not dare to say that. Sasuke's gaze became too cold, no feelings, a true Uchiha, but as soon as he looks at Naruto, his gaze becomes softer. I'm scared when I look at them. I have a strange feeling that they will kill anyone who tries to separate them. Rin, Obito, what's wrong? Sensei's voice pulled me out of my thoughtful state. And where is Kakashi? I hope Sasuke didn't disgrace the clan Obito? Fugaku-san's cold voice sounded, which I didn't notice right away due to my confusion. Kakashi stayed with the children to conduct a teamwork test. Sensei Obito answered the question. Sasuke, well, during the distribution he behaved quite restrained and showed good restraint. However, Kakashi, when he finishes the test, will be able to tell in more detail. Minato-sensei, we wanted to ask. I started hesitantly and stopped, not knowing how to ask the question correctly. Yes, Rin, I'm listening. Sensei looked at me with interest. What happened to Naruto? With Sasuke? I asked what was tormenting me, and seeing how Sensei raised his eyebrow in surprise, I hastened to explain. It feels like these are completely different people. I noticed that something has been happening with Naruto lately, but so far all the changes have only been for the better. I don't know why they started happening, but I've already checked. It's definitely my daughter. Sensei shrugged and looked towards Fugaku-sama. Towards Fugaku-sama. Sasuke was recently kidnapped and was brought back on the day of his final exams. Fugaku-sama said reluctantly. It was after this that he began to behave differently, but I can say with confidence that this is my son, and not someone else. They told us today that they have been dating for a year and a half, Obito said innocently, looking out the window. What? Minato-sensei and Fugaku-sama reacted in an unusually coordinated manner. Obito is right. I nodded at the dumbfounded looks of Sensei and Fugaku-sama. They themselves told us this. And quite calmly and as a matter of course. Minato-sensei, said Kakashi, who appeared in the window. I checked. The children passed. And what are your impressions? Minato-sensei asked him in a weak voice. Well-coordinated combat team and ballast, Kakashi said briefly. The team has passed and is ready to begin missions starting tomorrow. What about the details? Obito was indignant, taking advantage of the fact that the sensei and the head of the clan were clearly not themselves and would not be indignant. Sasuke and Naruto showed themselves to be quite strong opponents. Smart and purposeful. They have a fairly cold mind and are ready to team up even with unfriendly objects. At this moment Obito and I chuckled in harmony. It's not hard to guess who Kakashi christened that way, if it helps you complete the mission with maximum benefit for yourself. Not to mention their personal strength. Naruto masterfully wields the Kage Bunshin and Taha Kage Bunshin, has good hand-to-hand combat skills for a genin and throwing kunai and shuriken, and can set up quite serious fuin-based traps, and I'm sure she hasn't shown all she can. Sasuke has a Sharingan with 3 tomo, which he uses quite well, and his taijutsu with shuriken jutsu has increased greatly. He has good wakizashi skills, but judging by the way he holds it, he is used to a longer blade. But again, I'm sure Sasuke didn't show all his abilities. These two showed nothing at all beyond what was necessary, but only what was required. What about the third team member? Minato-sensei asked in a weak voice. However, Fugaku-san looked no better. A rather weak girl, especially compared to Sasuke and your daughter, sensei. In addition, she will conflict with Naruto in every possible way. Especially considering her feelings for Sasuke and the fact that he will never look at her. Kakashi winced and, looking hopefully in my direction, added, I hope Rin can influence her. For a clanless girl with little chakra but good control, the only path is to become a medic, but Sakura is unlikely to listen to me. It's clear, Minato-sensei squeezed out, tiredly massaging his temples. I hope for you. Go. Hi. We responded in unison and hastened to leave. Sensei has too much to think about, don't bother him. So what are we going to do, Fugaku? Came to my ear on the way to the door. Mary, Fugaku-san responded briefly. Then I think we need to discuss the details, the sensei said more animatedly, but further conversation was cut off by the slammed doors. It seems that Naruto was right when she said that she was only Namikaze for now, Obito drawled. I suggest going to a cafe and discussing plans for training the guys. Kakashi's voice broke the silence that had formed after Obito's words and, without waiting for an answer, turned to the exit. I exchanged glances with Obito and, receiving a puzzled shrug in response, followed our friend. We really should agree and share responsibilities. In my opinion, training one person is not the best option, but if everyone is training everyone, you should agree and create a schedule. I hope, this time there will be no strong disputes. NPOV Rin. Chapter 8. Mothers. Today was quite an interesting day, and most importantly fruitful. Sasuke and I immediately after the test ran away from Sakura, who did not understand polite messages, and I did not allow rude ones to be made. No, we didn't go on a date or anything like that, although we didn't refuse lunch at one of the cafes. We went to restore our skills. Having Kurama and knowing how and what to do really helped us. The only thing we had to do was transfer our theoretical knowledge into the reflexes of the body. So, for example, either of us had any problems with walking, both in trees and on water. Perhaps our most important problem was the rather weak development of the chakra focus and the SCH in general compared to our past counterparts, naturally. Here meditation and the constant use of chakra helped, but again. Kurama and I treated me, but Sasuke had to be more careful, because I was not able to treat him well, so it will take him much more time to build up, but on the other hand, his conditioned bodies are not as deplorable as mine. In addition to building up the SCP, I also did endurance, flexibility, and strength training. He was quite well developed in this regard. It was immediately noticeable that the previous owner of the body also did not neglect training. We didn't count on instant results, but in a month we will easily return to the level we had after the Chunin exams, maybe even more. The question, why do we need strength? It didn't even occur to us. In that world, balance had already been established, and there could be no global wars. But here this is still far from happening, if at all. However, let's not talk about sad things. In the evening, while it was still dark, try coming in the dark. BRRR. Considering the character of my mother, there are easier ways to commit suicide. We finished torturing our bodies and went towards my house. Sasuke led us to the gate, and we said goodbye. Kissing in front of everyone, and it was impossible not to notice surveillance from the house, was not only disgusting for us, but it didn't give us much pleasure either. After we experienced all the delights of the war heroes, we began to value solitude, and loneliness for a long time taught us to take care of our happiness. However, as soon as Sasuke turned around to leave, a wildly happy Kachan and Mikoto-san immediately jumped out of the house. They began to quickly and happily tell us something, congratulate us on something, but most importantly, they grabbed us by the arms and, until we came to our senses, dragged us into the house. We only came to our senses when we were seated in front of our wildly pleased fathers, next to whom Itachi and Aoi and Noriani sat with blank faces. By the way, the faces of the venerable fathers of families are worth special mention. It was quite easy to see traces of treated black eyes, but judging by the satisfied looks, this did not spoil their mood. I'm even afraid to ask, what is the reason for everyone gathering here? I asked cautiously, feeling that a wildly tense Sasuke was sitting next to me, and a tense Sasuke was synonymous with problems. Naruto, we have good news for you. Kachan sang cheerfully, pointedly ignoring her father's desire to say something. Yes, supported my friend Mikoto-san. I'm so happy too. You are my joy. Kachan hugged me, and I began to slowly but surely panic. I didn't even notice how much you grew. She has become such a beauty. It just blossomed. Supported Mikoto-san's ode of praise to me. My idiot is not worthy of you. I tried to get a word in, but I really didn't like the panicked look Itachi cast at his brother, and the no less gloomy Sasuke. I think white would suit her, Kushi-chan. Mikoto-san interrupted me. But then there should be turquoise or blue, as well as red and dark blue asterisk. I agree, Miko-chan. She looked at her friend Kachan with eyes full of delight. I also suggest purple. And orange. Mikoto-san supported her. So what's the matter? I was finally able to get in. Like what? Kachan clasped her hands. You're getting married. Ka. What? Enai-san and Nichan choked on their tea. However, Itachi did not lag behind them. Naruto, what? I'm more interested in who. Glancing cautiously at Sasuke, Itachi clarified his general question. Marries Sasuke? Yes, dear? Mikoto-san smiled brightly. Now it was Itachi's turn to choke and look at us in shock. I looked at the silent exchange of glances between the Uchiha brothers, which, apparently, satisfied both of them, and they agreed on something, and I slowly go wild. I'm interested too. It was not for nothing that Itachi reacted like that. So there was something, but what? I'll have to find out a little later. Of course, darling, Fugaku-san nodded importantly. Minato and I have already agreed on everything. They're only 13. Itachi and Aoi and I exclaimed in shock in unison. Agree, Noriani assented. It's too early for them to get married. And such a responsible step takes time. They must get to know each other. They are still small. I agree, Sasuke calmly conveyed his opinion, completely ignoring the cries of the elders, focusing his attention on his parents. But I suggest we stop at the engagement for now. The public will not understand such haste. We are still not the children of ordinary shinobi. I agree with Sasuke, I shrugged. I can promise on my own that we won't do anything stupid, and if we decide, we'll calculate all the consequences, and already mentally, hope. With your luck, Kurama chuckled. Don't remind me. I winced at his words. If you haven't forgotten, in that world Sasuke and I just wanted to have a child. That mission was to be my last for the next couple of years. Sorry, my friend said with remorse. Nothing. I sighed sadly. It's just a shame that now it's being postponed for at least another 5 years. But now you have your whole life ahead of you and you have parents," Kurama remarked judiciously. "Don't regret the past, you can't get it back, and just because you were going to do it doesn't mean you would have succeeded right away." "You're right, Kurama." I chuckle. "As always, I'm right." "You just agreed?" And how much indignation there is in the Chan's voice. About this intensity of passions. This look. Pfft. Sasuke snorted indignantly and fixed Nachan with a destroying look, from which she shuddered but did not retreat. Although his indignation is understandable, judging by the fleeting glance at me, he also remembered our desire, but was also well aware that everything has its time. "I don't see the problem," I shrug. "We have known each other since birth, and have been dating for the last year and a half." "What are you doing?" Nachan asked quietly and dejectedly, but our Anai-sens reacted a little calmer, although when they heard about a year and a half, they were surprised, very surprised. "Let's meet," I smiled sweetly and, naively flapping my eyelashes, continued, "This is when a girl and a guy spend a lot of time together, and also, I know what it's like to date." The enraged Eni-chan growled, but having caught the equally warning glances of Ka-chan and Mikoto-san, she instantly put on a sweet smile, which resembled a grin, and immediately corrected herself. "I mean, why did we just find out about this?" "You can't do that, Amato!" "You're right, you can't," I sighed heavily. "The public will not understand if the Hokage's youngest daughter marries before her eldest." A sad look at Toussaint and Ka-chan. "What a nuisance, Noriani!" From such impudence, Nachan had no words to censor, she simply sat and silently opened her mouth, unable to say anything. "And do not say Sasuke supported me. What can I say about my situation then? I'm the second heir." But Itachi never expected such a setup from his brother. How he turned pale under the thoughtful gaze of his parents. He even made attempts to mimic the surrounding area, unsuccessful, true, but what can you do? "But I think it's okay for now," he looked at his brother with a grin. "He still has a couple of years before my marriage, but for now I suggest I just sign the contract." Sasuke is right, Toussaint intervened in our conversation. "Maybe it was just my imagination, of course, but I got the feeling that Toussaint was just trying to defuse the situation. Although I am surprised that you took this news so calmly." "Why be surprised, Toussaint?" I shrugged. Something like this was to be expected. "It's not just that you assigned as many as 3 guards to us," I started, but when I saw Toussaint's panicked gaze directed at Ka-chan, I corrected myself. Mentors? 3 mentors? Ka-chan blinked in confusion. "What does this have to do with it?" "Well, I said. They were the first to suspect something and ask the question," Sasuke explained calmly. "Surely, when they reported whether we had passed, they could not resist and clarified this point, turned to Mai-to-san with Vigaku-san and asked, 'Am I right, Minato-sama, Tousama?' About." Ka-chan and Mikoto-san were amazed, quite synchronously, and then they looked at their faithful ones demandingly, still in unison, and asked, "Honey, is this true?" "Yes," the stronger sex responded a little nervously. "Children, are you probably tired?" Our mothers smiled softly at us, and without waiting for an answer, continued, "Go relax, and tomorrow you will definitely tell me how your day went." "Fine." Not only the 2 of us, but also our Anai-sans and Nachan responded surprisingly synchronously. After a couple of seconds, only the fathers of the families remained on the ground floor, who watched their children with envious glances, and in fact, the mothers of the families, who rolled up their sleeves and suspiciously tried on the cast-iron kitchen utensils with a long handle. Chapter 9. A difficult month. As soon as we went upstairs, we had to urgently remember how to quickly install barriers. Our mothers were at odds, so we decided to call a truce and temporarily put aside our differences by working together to set up a barrier. However, this circumstance did not in any way affect Itachi's desire to teach his presumptuous brother a lesson, but it delayed my interrogation. Although it is worth noting that the delay was only until the evening, but even that was not bad. It was especially funny to watch, and most importantly unusual, how Itachi tried to unscrew the ears of his beloved Otuto, and he tried his best to wriggle out of his tenacious hands. However, the fuse quickly passed, and the parents, attracted by the noise, came to check what was the matter, although it would be more correct to say that the fathers found a way to avoid punishment. In general, they didn't do anything to us, but they sent us home. The next month was fairly quiet. Our mothers turned out to be conspirators, or more precisely, someone was able to give them the sensible idea that it would be better to keep the future engagement a secret for now. You never know. So they held, almost. In my humble opinion, not only the entire Uchiha clan knew about the engagement, but everyone else. However, there was a big and fat but. No one was told the name of the one who would be engaged. People were only told that it would be Fugaka-san's son, but they modestly kept silent about which one. Now Itachi is taking the rap, receiving congratulations 10 times a day. However, to give him his due, he manages to accept them, eluding direct answers and smiling sweetly at the same time. However, after that he looks for Sasuke and drags him off to train. I don't know what they do there, but after that they both walk around beaten and positively glowing with joy. So it turns out that everything is fine and everyone is happy. True, not everything was as smooth as we wanted. For example, the Uzumaki clan was alive here, albeit not completely. It would be more correct to say that only a few families numbering no more than 24 adults and about 10 children were alive, who moved to Konoha after the Third World War, although Uzushio was destroyed in the Second. The old Uzukage then died protecting the retreating, but the new head of the clan was the brother of my Kachan, and she herself unexpectedly turned out to be the daughter of the old Uzukage. I won't say that I was impressed by such a relationship, but it did impose some obligations and restrictions. Naturally, even though I inherited Toussaint's surname, though it was more of a tribute to tradition, I still belonged to the Uzumaki clan, which means I needed to get my uncle's consent. However, there were no problems here, because he could not refuse his beloved sister, and such a marriage was beneficial not only to the Uchihas. The Uzumakis also did not lose out. However, it is worth paying tribute to my uncle. Before going to compliment the agreement already drawn up by our fathers, he called Sasuke to him and talked to him for a long time and persistently about something. I didn't manage to find out what they were talking about. They were both silent like partisans. Even the use of heavy artillery, in the sense of mothers, did not help. But after this conversation, Sasuke came out looking like a cat that had eaten too much sour cream, and the agreement between the clans acquired a couple more points. If I weren't so confident in the topic, I would have started to panic after this. But there were slight fears, of course, but not so strong as to run away from Konoha. In general, everyone knew about this significant event, but somehow the names of those who would be engaged remained a secret. All I could do was shrug my shoulders and wait in horror for all this to become known to Ino and Sakura. Although I was most worried about Sakura, Ino was smarter in this regard. After all, Yamanaka was the Haim of the clan and treated many issues more maturely. Yes, Sakura had changed significantly over the past month, but she still continued to consider Sasuke her property. Amazing impenetrability, but what am I talking about? She has always been stubborn, here and there, but there we have experienced too much to remain the same. And that Sakura had to rethink a lot, or rather, she was forced to do so by circumstances. Lately my mood has been fluctuating too much, and I am increasingly tormented by gloomy thoughts. There is a feeling that something is about to happen, something that I will not like very much. Well, everything can't go so smoothly, and if we take into account the fact that only Rin is with us now from the mentors, and even our father gave us a mission to catch Tora, in general, it's not surprising we've caught her for the third time this week, but I have a bad feeling. With a rather indifferent face, I watched the now familiar picture of Tora being strangled and nervously glance at each other with Sasuke. It looks like I'm not the only one who has a bad feeling, and even the morning conversation with my parents can't get out of my head. They almost openly said that Konoha was uneasy and, so that nothing would go wrong, they would try to remove us from the village for a while. Apparently, someone wants to disrupt the engagement ceremony, and considering that everyone was convinced that Itachi was getting engaged, all the blame is falling on him. I even heard about a couple of failed assassination attempts. Itachi himself had already been sent on some mission a couple of days ago. No one knows anything about the bride at all. Although most of the suspicion falls on my Eni-chan, she was unlucky to be on the same team with him, which is why she is often seen with him, so they gossip. But Nariko has also already been fused somewhere, like Anai-san, so the only ones who can be reached are Sasuke and me. No, of course, over this month we have improved our skills a little and now we can proudly say that, although not much, we are stronger than we were at the same age there. But this is not enough to be confident in our safety. And the fact that with our help it is possible to thwart all the plans of the Hokage and Fugaku-san is certain, because everyone knows about the close relationship of the Uchiha brothers. As soon as one is kidnapped, the other can be written off. They are too attached to each other. However, this would not be a problem if we were a little older and stronger. Itachi, for example, is easier to kill than to kidnap, but we are not older and certainly not stronger. The only way out is to send us somewhere far away, especially since it will be more difficult to catch us outside the village, and it will be very hemorrhoidal. However, all these intrigues around the heirs did not worry me much. Yes, it was unpleasant and quite dangerous, but that was not what worried me in the first place. I was scared. Yes, exactly. But not for myself, but for Kachan. The seal rapidly weakened, and with it her condition worsened. For now, she was restrained and strengthened by the remaining Uzumaki and Tusan, but the moment was not far off when this would no longer help. According to my calculations, it will finally be torn down in about 3 months, plus or minus a week. Then it will be already the 8th month. Like Bachan once said that this is already a normal period and there is no danger for the child. Another thing is dangerous. Childbirth itself is a terrible stress, and then the biju won't be held back by anything. Removing it will kill it. With great luck or bad luck, depending on how you look at it, it will distort its SCH, which is also a bad option. The only thing that comes to my mind in this regard is intervention in the printing process a little before birth. Or rather, even, not interference. But Kurama and I must get into her inner world, or drag her into ours, and there fight with the local Kyuubi. After victory, there simply cannot be any other options for us. Draw out almost all the chakra from him, or rather, even Kurama must completely absorb his double and return to me, leaving Kachan with part of his chakra, making her a pseudo-Jinchuriki. This will alleviate many problems, but there are 2 obstacles to the implementation of this plan. First, the fact that I knew how to penetrate, with or without Kurama, into other people's inner worlds in that world, does not mean that I can do the same here. I will have to train, and do it better outside the village. Second, and perhaps the most important thing, you need to convince your parents that this is the only way out. I have no idea how to pull this off. I need to share these thoughts with Sasuke. Maybe we can come up with something together. Team number 7, I have a C-rank mission for you, Tusan calmly told us as soon as he was able to send the daimyo's wife out. Rank C? These missions always take place outside the village. Perhaps this is our chance. Although, if this is what I thought, we're in trouble. Definitely. Yours, Kami-sama, Mother. What will it consist of? Sasuke asked calmly, although I could see that he was pleased. He, too, is tired of constant supervision and wants to break out from undercare. But is it worth it? Security and escort of the caravan to the land of waves, Toussaint answered no less indifferently. The only thing is that it will not be Rin who will accompany you. I have another mission for her. Who? I couldn't hold back my surprised exclamation. I sounded from the window, and I turned in that direction and saw a rather handsome brown-haired man. For some reason he seemed familiar to me. I had already seen him somewhere. But where? Although one thing can be said with 100% accuracy, Uchiha, I burst out doomedly. I'll tell you more. Kurama's voice rang in my head. This is Uchiha Shursui. We saw it in those memories that Sasuke showed in the first days of your hit. Yours. I burst out. What we are going to do? Nothing. Red chuckled. He won't be able to detect me until he gets into your inner world, and he can only get there with the help of the Sharingan. Just don't give him a reason to use it on you, that's all. I understand. I agreed with the judgments of my red-haired friend. That's right, young lady, the guy smiled sweetly at me. My name is Uchiha Shursui. May I be curious as to why my clan did not please you? There are too many of you lately, I answered absolutely honestly. One Sasuke was enough for me, but every day there was a new Uchiha among my friends. Ha! There was a rather pleasant laugh in response, and against my will I smiled back. I can't help you here, he spread his hands. But then consider this mission a vacation, because outside the village you will be able to meet other people. Not to mention that it is unlikely that you will have the opportunity to meet another Uchiha during it. You're right, I chuckled. But there will already be two of you there. Alas, it is so, Shursui said, looking at me cheerfully. But I think the company of two charming Uchihas is much better than the company. To all the charming Uchiha clan, I finished for him. Well, something like this, he snorted cheerfully and, slightly squinting his gaze towards the dissatisfied Sasuke, added, It's still ahead of you. You won't be able to get away. He clearly didn't look surprised, and I remembered that he was sort of Itachi's friend and their cousin. Judging by his reaction, he was aware of everything and was genuinely enjoying the whole farce. And I already like this guy, Kurama told me cheerfully. He has a sense of humor. Let's work together. I'll take this into account. My smile became malicious, and I answered red rather than Shursui. Are you done? Toussaint's voice interrupted our exchange of pleasantries. I beg your pardon, Hokage-sama, my new friend immediately responded. It's okay, Toussaint shook his head. Here are the mission details, handed Shursui the letter. The customer is waiting for you downstairs. The caravan leaves tomorrow morning. Free. Hi! We answered in unison and swept out of the office. It's boring to describe further fees. We were quickly and briefly told where and who we would be accompanying, given brief recommendations on packing, and sent on our way. For me, getting ready did not cause any complications, because in my previous life we had gone on long missions so many times, so most of the actions were performed automatically. The only thing that raised questions was what kind of mission would this be? After all, in that world we were accompanying not a caravan, but one person, and we came across a very interesting company. That was the first time I realized what it meant to be a shinobi, that when we fought, we put our lives on the line. I realized a lot after meeting Zabuza and Haku. Will we meet them now? Or did their lives turn out differently? There are so many questions, but I won't be able to find answers to them soon, and maybe not. I want and am afraid to meet them. What will I tell them? How to behave? However, I was not allowed to indulge in empty thoughts for long. Sasuke sensed my condition and came to visit, so the rest of the evening passed in cheerful chatter and bickering. Yes, I was still nervous before the mission, as if I was going on it for the first time, but now the anxiety has faded into the background. It is there, but at the same time it does not occupy all my thoughts. Soon I won't have to guess anymore. If not tomorrow, then the day after tomorrow everything will be decided. Chapter 10. The Path to the Land of Waves. I won't say that I was impressed by the trip, not at all. It was wildly boring and uninteresting, although we must give Shursui credit, he turned out to be an excellent conversationalist. And what's surprising is that, despite his status as a genius and a fairly large age difference, and no matter that we are actually the same age, he doesn't know about it, he treated us as equals. It was captivating. Although what was most pleasing was that he willingly shared his knowledge and reacted very calmly to friendly jokes. However, he himself was not averse to sometimes making fun of his neighbor. Yes, he could not help me in many ways, but Sasuke. In that world, he was deprived of a normal trainer in Genjutsu and in mastering the Sharingan. Yes, he achieved and knew a lot, but it was only a drop in the sea of knowledge and skills of his clan, and now new secrets were revealed to him. As he once admitted to me, Shursui was an excellent sensei and the knowledge he gave was priceless. I like to just talk with a person, without holding back my malicious nature, without fear of being misunderstood or offending someone. Not to mention the fact that Shursui turned out to be quite good at taijutsu and willingly taught me what I was worst at, shurikenjutsu. The only one who was not particularly happy with the current situation was Sakura, but she was smart enough to remain silent and not interfere. However, I was getting more and more stressed out by her looks. They don't look at friends that way, although they don't look at enemies either. I sighed with relief only after a couple of days later. Sasuke came to me, shaking with laughter, and told me that I was insidiously cheating on him with Shursui. Hearing this nonsense, Shursui choked and looked warily at the grinning Sasuke. "Who told you this nonsense?" Shursui asked him carefully. "Sakura," Sasuke chuckled in response. "Don't worry, Shursui-san, I trust Naruto. She won't betray me." "Does that mean I don't?" His cousin was sincerely indignant. "No," Sasuke grinned and said with an absolutely serious pug, "if Naruto weren't my girlfriend, I would have taken her away myself." "Or would you say that such thoughts have never crossed your mind?" "She's too small," Shursui said importantly, who realized that he was being sincerely mocked and calmed down. "If she were 3 years older, then you should go to Norieni," I intervened. "She is a good 6 years older than me," I said, and was surprised to see Shursui's ears starting to turn red. "What, already?" I couldn't hold back my shocked exclamation. "I'm sorry," Sasuke said soulfully. "Loving Uzumaki is difficult, but," he exclaimed solemnly and, after a significant pause, continued, "the reward pays for everything." A dreaminess appeared in his gaze, then he licked his lips and continued, "Dash, they're too hot." He dodged the blow, imbued with chakra, and laughing barely audibly, hurried to escape. "You were right in a hurry." "Found something to discuss." Although Shursui, red from embarrassment, who understood Sasuke's hints in his own way, and no matter what is true, is still a sight to behold. But this does not mean that he has the right to behave this way. All this happened in that world. There was nothing here yet. You would think this would be different. Kurama snorted derisively. "It is unlikely that your temperament has undergone major changes." "And you too!" I exclaimed indignantly, but it was worth admitting that Red was right. Soon the teenage body will take its toll. You just have to be patient until you get engaged, and after that everything is possible. But it is undesirable, because before the ceremony I will have to undergo a full examination, which will reveal everything. No one wants a spoiled bride for the heir, and it doesn't matter what the second one is. And it also doesn't matter that it was the groom who spoiled her, and after that we will be given something like a seal of fidelity. This will eliminate the possibility of treason. No, you can bypass this seal, but why? Moreover, there is no prohibition on relationships between engaged couples. All this, of course, is interesting, but there is something I don't like. I don't like it so much that I stopped pursuing the satisfied Sasuke. However, I wasn't the only one who felt the wrongness. There, Sasuke also got close, and Shursui rushed to the head of the caravan. A second and people hid behind the high sides of the carts. We were lucky that it was a daytime stop and most were resting near them, and this seemed to be a signal for action. So I sensed danger and with great difficulty dodged the samban thrown at me. It was also difficult to dodge because they were thrown generously. I had to use kawarimi on the nearest large stone. Sasuke was a little more lucky. A fireball flew at him, which he easily dodged and tried to close the distance with the enemy, which no one was going to give him, by starting to throw kunai at him. However, the attackers made one mistake. They looked into his eyes. I don't know what this ability is called, but Sasuke, like Madara, could make an opponent freeze with one glance. This lasted literally a second, although it largely depended on the willpower of the enemy, but this advantage was usually enough. So now the two opponents froze for a second, but this was enough for him to get to them and cut both of their throats with two swings, and then begin to look for a new opponent. Then I no longer followed my comrades, completely surrendering to the battle. Having summoned about 50 clones and using the help of Kurama, I took on the few remaining in the forest, deciding that the Uchihas would calmly deal with the rest. Not to mention the fact that, having moved, I was closest to the forest and there were no enemies near me, so I didn't waste time. I was lucky, and among the 5 archers there were only 2 serious opponents. Judging by my feelings, they were approximately at the level of average chunin, and they also worked in pairs. My mistake was that I underestimated them. I forgot that I was not in my adult and trained body, but in the body of a 13-year-old girl who seriously started training only a month ago. In this situation, even the vaunted endurance of the Uzumaki, which I fully inherited from my mother, and which was enhanced by the presence of Kurama, though not yet much in this body, does not help. I felt the full consequences of my mistake almost immediately. At the very beginning, only luck saved me. Although it would be more correct to say that Kurama's heightened sense of smell and intuition of a shinobi who went through the war, which allowed him to notice opponents and dodge arrows, and then thrown kunai. A little later, the remaining 10 clones came to my aid. The rest had already dispersed by that time, having completed what they were called for. Although their presence did not help much, it allowed me to take a breath and stall for time a little. Under the guise of clones, things went better for me. I managed to separate these 2. While the clones distracted one enemy, I dealt with the second. He was pretty good, but it was still noticeable that they were not used to fighting in the forest. It is impossible to use most techniques here, because it was easy to hide from them behind nearby trees, and kunai and shuriken did not give the desired effect. Bows, well, not only did they throw them away at the very beginning, but I was also not going to give them a chance to use them by simply cutting the bowstrings at the very beginning. So we pretended to be grasshoppers, jumping on the branches one after another. However, I was not very happy with this result and diligently remembered everything that could help me with this. Once again I regretted that I had not yet managed to master my father's Horatian. Here he would come in handy for me. When I get back from the mission, I'll go after Anai-san or my father, although I'm unlikely to succeed with the second one, but Aoi and I won't turn away. The main thing is not to forget. Well now, you have to try hard to win. According to my calculations, it turned out that I had to give in a little and allow the enemy to approach me, or stall for time until reinforcements arrived, which, for reasons unknown to me, were delayed. However, the clones will not last long, only 2 of them remain, and no one will let me create new ones, each time managing to intervene at the last moment and disrupt the creation of the jutsu. Feeling the last clones disperse, I realized that there was no time to wait any longer. I had to expose myself to another thrown kunai, or rather, let myself get hit while moving from one branch to another. To my regret, they hit me in the leg and the wound was dangerously close to the tendon, but it was difficult to stop me with it, and fall like a wounded bird down. It's good that it was only a couple of meters to the ground and the blow wasn't strong, but it was colorful and made me believe in my temporary helplessness. Both of my opponents rushed to finish off the wounded man, or me, but how could they know that I was a Jinchuriki? Although the wound was deep, with the help of Kurama it healed before I reached the ground, not to mention the fact that I knew how to ignore the pain in my body even before I entered the academy in that world, and there were similar wounds then not uncommon. The ability to endure pain saved me many times there and will probably save me here again. So it turned out that by the time these 2 tried to pin me with their swords, I was completely fine and met them fully armed. Taking advantage of the moment of surprise, I managed to throw 2 kunai, unnoticed from the seals on my wrists, thanks to Kachan, who made them for me a week before this mission. They wouldn't have been able to do any serious damage if I hadn't used the technique. Nimpo Kaige Kunai Star. It was more difficult to dodge the multiplying kunai, as well as to make a replacement. No, they were able to replace themselves with a log, but several shadow copies of kunai still reached their target. This did not cause any serious wounds to them, but it gave me time to call the next batch of clones. Deciding not to waste time on trifles, I created about 100 at once, and then I brazenly hid behind the spears and, under their cover, began to deliver, albeit weak, blows, and some of the clones' blows also passed. I'm ashamed to admit, but I literally filled these 2 with meat. And it doesn't matter that they were clones. Although this gave me the opportunity to take them alive, albeit very battered. As soon as I finished with these 2, I heard Shursue's satisfied voice, "Not bad. Although you lack experience." I look up and see the Uchiha's satisfied face. I don't even have to guess what he was doing here. And it's clear that Toussaint assigned him to keep an eye on us. So he tries to prevent the golden children from accidentally dying. "How long have you been here, Shursui-san?" I asked tiredly and approached the bound prisoners. They need to have chakra-blocking seals placed on them. It's a pity that I can't place them with a touch, like Ka-chan or Anai-san with any chan. I need to make several seals and concentrate quite hard on what is happening, otherwise it turns out to be nothing. From the very beginning, Naruto-chan, the guy answered, smiling. I couldn't let any of my charges get hurt. Clear, I nodded, meticulously examining the seals I had placed. It seems that I didn't mess anything up, and now there is no need to worry about the prisoners. I took the weapon, and without it the chakra, they are practically harmless. Naruto, is there anything you want to tell? Dropping the joking tone, the guy asked me surprisingly seriously. What are you about? I turned to the Uchiha in surprise. You don't have to worry about the prisoners. My clones will drag them away to Sasuke, and he will have a heart-to-heart talk with them, although, knowing this cunning infection, I'm sure he'll get his cousin involved in this. For example, about why that wound on the leg has already disappeared. Shursui didn't accept my game. And don't talk about the fact that you are half Uzumaki, even their regeneration is not that fast. As far as you know, I'm into Iryujutsu, I shrug, feeling how Kurama has crept up in my inner world. Crap. It's such a stupid thing to screw up. Although, he couldn't feel the intervention of my red-haired friend. It was too targeted, which meant it was too early to panic, especially since I actually know this kind of Irajutsu, but I rarely use it. Are you saying that you already know how to patch up damage without using seals? Shursui asked, raising an eyebrow in surprise. Yes, I nod affirmatively. Only so far I have been able to apply this skill only to myself. I still have to use seals to heal others. Why such interest? Nothing, Shursui responded hastily, even too hastily. I think it's time for you to return, while I take care of the prisoners. Fine, I agreed, pretending that I did not notice the excessive haste in the Uchiho's words, and made a sign for the clones to throw the prisoners back and scatter, and I slowly set off towards our forced stop. Please call Sasuke came from behind me. I will need his help. I thought it was unnecessary to answer, so I simply nodded. Everything was clear to me. Shursui decided to train Sasuke in the ability to control other people's consciousness, and the captives were better suited for this. He might have waited, because, in theory, this was the first time we saw death so close and killed. For everyone it is a shock. However, he could not help but notice that our behavior was too calm, which could not but raise questions. I hope Sasuke can influence him. In the end, in my case it can be attributed to shock, because I didn't kill anyone. But who knows? Maybe he'll chalk it up to some clan training. Although it wouldn't hurt to warn him. Chapter 11. Minor Inconsistencies. As I thought, Sasuke needed Shursui to teach him the art of interrogation, and he was very surprised when he realized that he already had good knowledge in this section. Although it is worth noting that Sasuke still could not work subtly with consciousness, and not only here, in that world too, but Shursui was a master of precisely targeted influences. In general, they were pleased with each other, and most importantly, they learned some information. The information that the attack was planned did not surprise us, but something else was interesting. It turned out that here, in Kiri the civil war was much more brutal than in that world, but some remnants of the clans were still preserved, and not in a single copy, which is important, and were able to either go under the wing of Tsurumi or escape to other countries. As a result, the number of nukenin in countries neighboring the Bloody Mist has increased greatly, if not to say that it has reached a critical level. Moreover, even after the end of the bloody quarrel they are in no hurry to return back, and they will receive them with great caution. You never know, maybe Yagura's former henchmen? So it turns out that they are poisoning the lives of everyone around them, especially since among those who escaped there were many quite strong shinobi and a third, if not half, of the 7 swordsmen. However, they wisely do not meddle in the great countries, for the most part, and if they do, they are quickly caught. However, this calms few people in small countries, because they do not have strong shinobi who would eliminate the problem, and their formidable neighbors are in no hurry to help, for free. I even feel sorry for the locals, because I can imagine what problems war-torn ninjas could bring. I encountered this myself back there. Having received such information, I decided to find out about the fate of the swordsmen. It's not that they worried me much, but I was interested in the fate of Haku and Momochi. At one time they greatly influenced me. I wouldn't want that story to repeat, they deserved better. We managed to find out the following. Zabuza turned out to be close to the Mizukage, since he was one of the first to join the rebellion, and next to him there is always a boy whose description strongly resembles Haku. Kisame disappeared somewhere, and for several years in a row nothing was heard from him, as well as from his Samahata. I had one hope, that the shark face didn't join Madara, although it remains to be seen whether the fossil is alive or not, and whether the Akatsuki was created. It would be a pity if we again found ourselves on opposite sides of the barricades. He was a good shinobi and comrade, because otherwise he would not have sacrificed himself then. Hiramikarii, which belonged to Brother Suigetsu, also found a new owner, who turned out to be the same person as in our previous world, namely Chojiro. There were 4 more swords left, but if Kibaringo Aim Yuri and Nobari Kushimaru Kuriere, according to data reported by the prisoners in Shursui, were kept in the treasury of Kirigakure, then the remaining 2 swords were unclear where and unclear with whom, but nothing was said about the death of the previous owners. Badly. If their characters are the same as in the previous world, these psychos are dangerous to society. I remember Kakashi-sensei and Gai-sensei telling us that they were revived during the war, and how they treated their comrades. I wouldn't want to meet them, but judging by the prisoners' stories, the likelihood is high. After all, one of them saw those who gave them the task something very reminiscent of Shibuki's sword. Damn! And how can Sasuke and I explain our reluctance to move further with the caravan? We still have very slim chances against such opponents, although, we need to talk to Kurama. Exactly. With his help, I can reach speeds that are not inferior even to Hiraishin 2-san. And his chakra protects well from other people's attacks. Of course, I can't stand a full cover yet, but 1 or 2 tails, that's enough, and if I don't lose control over myself, the chance of survival increases. True, I wouldn't want to go to such an extreme. Explaining the presence of his chakra would be, as Shikamaru says, problematic, but life is more valuable. Especially the lives of loved ones. So, okay. It's clear to me, you'll have to double your meditation time, it will hurt, but the result is worth it. But Sasuke will have to focus on the Sharingan, it is the only thing that can help him in battle with such opponents. However, he himself understands everything perfectly, all that remains is to convey his understanding to Shursui. Although he is not a stupid guy and will understand everything himself. Although I am very sorry that we do not have the right to refuse the mission. The reputation of Konoha is at stake, and there is no direct evidence that the swordsmen are behind everything. We also cannot refuse the mission because we met a couple of Nupnin, because the head of the caravan immediately drew up the necessary document, which confirmed the increase in the rank of the mission, not to mention the fact that he himself was not aware of the changes in the current situation. There shouldn't have been an attack. The country of waves is too small and poor, the only source of income is fishing. The construction of the bridge that we were guilty of had not even begun yet, although the project had already been approved. But not all the formalities had yet been settled, but it was known for sure that it would be built. However, this caravan was supposed to deliver some super-needed tools and something else for construction. Perhaps this was the reason for the attack? In response to my direct question, the head of the caravan hesitated a little, but said that he did not know, and suggested asking this question to the chief architect, to whom he should deliver the contents of the caravan. It's strange, but Sasuke and Shursui confirmed that he was being honest with us. No matter how it turns out that the opponents are much more serious than one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. True, despite all the oddities, we decided to continue the mission, although we supported Shursui's decision to request help. However, even if Toussaint sent reinforcements immediately upon receiving the letter, they are unlikely to catch up with us to the place where the caravan is heading. So we can only hope that our commander knows what he is doing. For all the time that I knew him, he seemed to me to be a rather serious fellow, even if he hid it behind the eternal mask of good nature. Not to mention the fact that the Hokage entered into another agreement with the customer, according to which we will have to stay at the construction site for about 2 more weeks until another team replaces us. This team was supposed to ensure the safety of the bridge construction. I don't like all this. Why didn't anyone tell us about this in the first place? Why were you notified only now? After all, it is immediately clear that all this is not just like that. Or did Toussaint decide to test us? That's a thought. Our behavior has changed too much in the last couple of months, and it doesn't matter that most of these changes are for the better. They still exist and are too noticeable, which means they are suspicious. He could easily do a blood and chakra test on any day. Fortunately, we went through a medical examination when we were assigned to teams and another one shortly before this mission. It couldn't show anything strange, unless I had a small amount of Kurama's chakra, and that's all. However, this anomaly is easy to explain, because I live in the same house with the Jinchuriki, and who knows what other explanations there could be. Although, clearly far from the truth. This is where difficulties arise. Give us over to the brainiacs. Even if we put aside the fact that we have protection on our minds, what remains is that we are children who grew up before his eyes, and I am still his own daughter. His conscience, and the punishing hand, does not allow him kachan, and it is not known which is stronger, so he comes up with tests. He is interested in how we will behave in a given situation. Roughly speaking, how loyal are we to Konoha and whether we should be trusted. It is possible, of course, that all this is just a coincidence, but I refuse to believe that he did not know about the possible difficulties. Therefore, I can only hope that my thoughts are correct, because if I understood everything correctly, then help will come much sooner. I hope. The rest of the journey with the caravan was smooth and we reached our destination without any problems. However, none of us was in a hurry to relax. On the contrary, we doubled our caution and intensified our training. Shui looked approvingly at our efforts and willingly conducted sparring sessions or gave advice on mastering this or that technique. In addition, he helped me determine my elements. As expected, the first was futon, but the second was doton, and if I added Kurama's chakra, then I became the proud owner of katon. So, to my usual training, I added puffing over a pile of earth, which I soaked with my chakra, and drying leaves with fire chakra. The exercises moved with a creak, but thanks to the clones, although, more correctly, only to them, because I myself completely devoted myself to meditation and the development of the SCH with the help of Kurama, the results still appeared, on the 10th day. However, I would be careful not to use them in battle. Here I had one assistant futon. I began to develop someone from the first days of transference, and even in that world I achieved good results in this element. Here they were modest, but for the age of my body they were not bad. True, I still had much higher hopes for Kurama's help than for elemental techniques. Sasuke had no less problems. Exercises with the Sharingan greatly tired his eyesight, and most importantly, the rather thin chakra channels leading to the eyes, and without my help he would not have been able to withstand such a load. I already had to devote time to him every 3 or 4 hours and, taking advantage of Kurama's favor, not only treat this idiot, but also transfer the purified fox chakra to him. This helped, and he got up again and continued training with wild persistence, although in other directions. Still, he didn't want to go blind ahead of time, so he spent most of his training with his eyes turned off. Well, except for those that were directly devoted to the development of dojutsu. By the way, I managed to talk to him about his mangekyo and rinnegan. It turned out that he felt that he had them, but could not use them. The chakra reserve and undeveloped chakra channels in the eyes do not allow it, so he strains himself, trying to expand them. Things are moving slowly, but some progress is already being observed. According to him, another year or 2 and he will calmly reach the level of mangekyo, the same amount of time and perhaps he will be able to use the rinnegan. He was better with the elements. No, of course, he didn't yet have all 5, as in that world, but he had already mastered Kado and Raiten quite well. What helped him in this was the fact that all Uchihas also had a predisposition to Kado, and the fact that he only had to remember, and not, like me with my elements, well, except for futon, learn everything from scratch. not to mention the help of Kakashi-sensei and Itachi even before this mission. I was much less fortunate in this regard, because somehow I didn't think to ask my relatives for help. Well, I'm not used to the fact that I have relatives ready to help, but they didn't consider it necessary or didn't think either. Who knows? So now I have to suffer almost alone. Sakura, well, that attack finally made her think about the eternal and the frailty of existence. Although the main reason could be her injury during the battle. Sakura saw that her skills were not enough for a full-fledged fight, and also that Sasuke was far from a knight on a white horse. Yes, he covered her and helped her hide when she was wounded, but at the same time he did not skimp on words about her uselessness. Oddly enough, she told me about this herself when I returned from the forest to the camp. This made her think about training, and she even asked me for help. I didn't refuse, and now my clone helps her in her taijutsu training, which Shursui often joined. A little later, I taught her Iryujutsu and helped her adapt her knowledge to combat. Or rather, I tell her everything that Sakura of that world once told me about her training with Byakugan. I wasn't even too lazy to set up a conversation with Shursui, where he told us about the great Dr. Tsunade Senju. True, Shursui later told me that I could have simply asked him for help without going to extremes, but one way or another, I achieved my goal. Sakura finally began to think about the future and realized that a kunoichi is a fighter first, and only then someone else. Perhaps soon we will get a good doctor on our team who will not only treat, but also understand poisons. I'm a complete layman in this, my ceiling, to partially pull it out of someone else's body, but I won't be able to create an antidote, and most importantly, she began to still very distantly, but resemble my friend from that world. I hope that she can become a close friend to me here too. I'm tired of hostility, I want peace. And I'm afraid of her reaction to the news about Sasuke and Ai's engagement. I don't yet undertake to predict her reaction to this. One hope, that this mission will influence her enough, and she will come to terms with our choice. Or rather, with Sasuke's choice. I haven't seen Shursui's training. He mostly trained us and sometimes accompanied Tazuna, who was the main architect of the bridge here too. Therefore, I knew his abilities insofar as, and for the most part, all my knowledge was based on Sasuke's uncertain stories, which were based on impressions of his training with him and the memory of the previous owner of the body, as well as on what I knew from that world, and I knew little. He was Itachi's friend and mentor, he was a genjutsu genius, and just a good person. Not much, right? That's how it seems to me. But he refused to answer direct questions. And the training sparring did not give an accurate picture, because we were now quite weak and he hardly showed even a tenth of his abilities. It's a shame, of course, but fair. It's been a long time since I've been so naive as to demand that you tell me everything about yourself and your skills. Kakashi-sensei, once upon a time, unimaginably long ago, back in that world, according to my feelings, gave me a whole lecture about how a real shinobi keeps his abilities secret. Life later showed me the truth of such a statement many times, so I didn't really demand a report on his abilities from him, but I didn't care anyway. However, our training exhausted us so much that even I did not have the strength to be curious, so I resigned myself to the mystery of our temporary sensei. However, his thoughtful glances at me or Sasuke were a little annoying. I was wondering when he would start asking questions, before or after we reach Konoha, or after the attack if that happens. And I no longer believed that he wouldn't ask them. The Uchiha are masters of genjutsu deception, though they might argue with that claim, and he is also a recognized genius in the field, and he could easily notice what others missed. After all, he has an undoubted advantage over others. He is not consumed by guilt, like my family or Itachi, which allows him to look at everything objectively. He didn't know us differently, And that distant image from our childhood does not prevent him from focusing on the main thing. He simply observes and draws conclusions. We can only hope that these conclusions will not be against us. Chapter 12. Fight on the bridge. I always knew that in my case, if I'm unlucky, I'm not lucky globally. But who knew that everything would turn out exactly like this? Naturally, no one. But this does not change the fact that we are tensely awaiting our verdict from the lips of Shursui. But I think you are interested in knowing everything in order? Well, listen. The weather was beautiful that day, plus Shursui forced us to take a break and today we rested. Well, how we had a rest. Our task was to protect the architect while he controlled the construction, but for us it was a rest. Moreover, Shursui, making sure that even if we were left alone, we would not forget about the task, left Sakura in Tsunami's house with a clear conscience. She had to protect Tazuna's family if necessary, and we had time to be alone, except for Shursui, who carefully pretended that he was not interested in our relationship. Well, yes. Why? You'd think I didn't see that his crows were constantly watching us both. However, this did not affect us much, and Sasuke and I considered such measures justified. We were too restless, not to mention the fact that reinforcements were delayed and it was unknown when they would arrive. Therefore, we turned a blind eye to surveillance. After all, with Shursui's support it was calmer, and there were more chances to survive. However, the presence of a nanny did not affect us in any way, and we were in no hurry to relax too much. My clones controlled the area, but even so, the attack came as a surprise to us. I just suddenly felt that someone began to dispel my clones. Moreover, some of them noticed only a blurry shadow, and that's all. It was strange. Of course, I haven't even come close to strong Jounin yet, but I had to at least see something. And here it's just a shadow. I already felt sick just thinking about who it could be. Before I had time to report the first dispelled clones, new information arrived from several more. Judging by the data, 3 detachments are approaching us. The central one, in which no one knew who was a member, I couldn't even notice them, and one on each side of the central one, but here it wasn't so bad. The 2 side detachments consisted of ordinary bandits, and my clones decided that they could handle it themselves, and to tell me this news they scattered one at a time. I had to urgently pull myself together, quickly, in short phrases, bring Shursui and Sasuke up to date on what was going on, and at the same time create another 100 clones to help the remaining ones and at the same time so that they would take the workers away. Shursui, quickly sensing the problem, simply ordered all civilians to leave, which they did not hesitate to do. He would have ordered us to leave, but he understood that we would refuse, so he simply ordered us to get ready. As soon as the chakra dispersed a little, 4 people appeared in front of us. 2 boys our peers, and apparently they were students. Yes. These swords. There is no doubt. It's Kabutoari and Shibuki. This means that Jinin Akabino and Jinpachi Munashi stand before us along with their students. Madara is my mother-in-law. We're stuck. Sasuke, Naruto, you have the boys, and I'll take care of the swordsmen, Shursui said tensely, and I was glad that we managed to take away the civilians. There was nothing for them to do here. Did you hear, motherfuckers? Jinpachi asked caustically. Your opponents have already been identified. Yes, sensei, one of the boys responded briefly. Then move away and don't interfere, Jinin barked at them. Sasuke and I simultaneously glanced at Shursui and, receiving an affirmative nod, allowed ourselves to be led away. The boys themselves were strong and cruel. They did not waste words, and as soon as they moved a little away from the place where the older generation stood, they instantly attacked. Excellent preparation. But they lacked experience, or rather the experience of working together. Sasuke and I constantly changed opponents, either carrying out or subduing our partner for sudden attacks, but it was more difficult for them in this regard. They didn't trust each other's backs and didn't feel their partner the way we did. Moreover, they were not superior to us in speed, but were even slightly inferior, so their fate was sealed. We didn't hesitate when we fought them, but we didn't kill them, we just wounded them and exhausted them. After that, Sasuke caught them in an illusion and, getting closer, knocked them out with a blow to the carotid artery. It took a few more minutes to install the containment seals and seal the two in a medical scroll. It's a pity for him, of course, but it's reliable, and then we hurried to help Shisui. When we arrived at the bridge, a rather eerie picture appeared before us. Shisui had great difficulty avoiding his opponent's attacks. The situation was further aggravated by the fact that taking Shibuki's blow, it's like running into an enhanced explosion seal, and more than one. I'm generally silent about Kabutowari's reflection. It wasn't so easy to call it the helmet splitter, it fully lived up to its name. In addition, I noticed that Shisui constantly wrinkles his nose and blinks quite often. Crap! I know these symptoms. This is exactly how Sasuke behaves when his eyes get tired. If so, then we have serious problems. I glance at Sasuke and nod at him. Yes, we have practically no chance against any swordsman, but we are quite capable of distracting him a little and not dying at the first moment. I take out a kunai with an explosion seal attached and throw it straight at Jinpachi. He manages to close himself on Shibuki, but the activation of my seal makes him stumble, which Shisui manages to take advantage of. Quick swing and the shurikens cut quite deeply into one of his hands. All. Now he will no longer be able to use his sword to its full potential. As it turned out, I rejoiced early. He growled something unintelligible and rushed towards Sasuke and me. I did not have time to escape from the blow, seeing how slowly and inevitably this sword was approaching me. I had already said goodbye to my newfound life when I was thrown aside by Sasuke, but he was hit. As if in slow motion I see how my beloved flies 10 meters away and freezes like a broken doll. Without hearing the mocking laughter of the swordsman and the warning cry of Shisui, I go to Sasuke and kneel down in front of him. I feel the pulse, it is weak, almost unnoticeable. I feel relief at first, and then all-consuming rage. His pulse began to subside, and I can't do anything. He won't accept my chakra. The gaze rests on the suddenly silent Akabino. No one dares to touch what is dear to me. The last sensible thought was that I should not let them near Sasuke at any cost, and then my consciousness turned red. After how long I woke up, I don't know, but the feeling was lousy. The whole body ached and ached. Kurama did not respond. Sasuke was lying nearby and unconscious, but alive. Shisui often came to visit, but did not answer questions, only frown. The dam broke only a week later, when Sasuke and I began to gradually rise and walk independently. He demanded answers. Shisui's POV. As soon as Sasuke and Naruto disappeared along with the sword students, I had to focus on my opponents. It was bad. It is not customary to talk about my problem in the clan, but my weakness was the inability to use the Sharingan for a long time. It tired me too much. This feature manifested itself after receiving Mangekyo. So I had to learn to use it as quickly and efficiently as possible. I managed to develop my abilities, but I still couldn't drag out the fights. Now more than ever, I feel my helplessness more acutely. I may not be able to win. To my shame, I missed the moment when the guys rushed to my aid. However, this did not stop me from taking the chance they gave and throwing shurikens soaked in chakra at the open Akabino. He didn't have time to close, and now I'm sure that one of his arms is completely disabled. The only thing I'm unhappy with is that he's skilled enough to use chakra to cover wounds without bleeding to death. However, it would be naive to hope for this. All more or less strong jounin possess such a skill. Although I am glad that I wounded him, now he will not be able to wield his sword as deftly as in the beginning, which means that now it will be easier. True, as time has shown, I rejoiced early. Akabino cursed and rushed towards the children. I rushed to cross him and barely have time to dodge Jinpachi's blow. The explosion that came from the place where Shibuki landed clearly showed that I did not do it in vain. I had to focus all my attention on the enemy and pray to all the gods that everything would work out. I prayed in vain, nothing happened. I realized this when I heard Akabino's crazy laugh and after Jinpachi echoed him. But after, I will probably never forget the rage and pain that splashed in the usually kind eyes of the student, glowing with joy. But that was not so bad. A moment later, her pupils became vertical and her irises turned a deep red. The almost imperceptible stripes on her cheeks, which previously seemed like funny birthmarks and made her look like a cute little fox that she just wanted to cuddle, grew larger and became darker. For a second she simply looked at the silent swordsman, and then literally disappeared into thin air. A moment later, her hand, already enveloped in red-orange chakra, pierces the chest of the frozen swordsman, and then she disdainfully shakes him off her hand. Jinan's death was instantaneous. However, I wasn't sure that it was Naruto before, but I wasn't sure that it was her, because 3 tails were fluttering behind her back, and the feeling of pressing chakra was familiar. I didn't spend a long time admiring the corpse. Her next victim was Jinpachi, who tried to blow her up with Shibuki's help. He even managed to blow up one of the tails with which she covered herself, but she had 2 more, and these tails grabbed the swordsman trying to resist. They literally enclosed him in their translucent cocoon, and for the first time I saw a person burning alive. Or should I say, corroded by poisonous chakra. Doesn't matter. A minute later it was all over and I met the attentive eyes of the bijou. Yes, now I was sure that I saw the 9 tails in front of me. Before his gaze I was confused, and thoughts of trying to subdue him did not even arise. This seemed like wild stupidity, and came to my mind after all the events. I was even glad that such a thought did not enter my head then, because I was sure that the reaction to my actions would have followed immediately. Take care of these 2, a growling voice pulled me out of prostration, and I was surprised to realize that it belonged to Naruto, although no Kyuubi. If they want they will tell, and I go back, a creepy grin, and he adds, and yes, don't you dare influence Naruto or Uchishanka, a casual nod to Sasuke. You disobey you will die. Then this creature turns around and lies down next to the body of my little cousin. She takes his hand, and at first the aggressive chakra suddenly flares up in gold. When I blinked my eyes I felt that frightening feeling had disappeared and opposite me lay the badly wounded, but so familiar Naruto and Sasuke. I fall to my knees and ask a question into the void. What was it? I'm trying to come to my senses. I pull my hair, but it doesn't help. A quiet groan pulls me out of this state, and I get up. I can get the answers later, but for now I have to take care of the students.pov shursway. Chapter 13 Conversation.pov shursway. Perhaps these were the most difficult 10 days of my life. No, I was not worried about the students, their wounds were insignificant, although it would be more correct to say, very competently patched up. I shuddered at the thought that monster lived in the fragile body of my student. But the main question was, how did this happen? Why doesn't Minato-sama tell anyone that his daughter Jinchuriki? What was that golden chakra at the end? And most importantly, why did the 9 tails give in so easily and return back to the cage? Why did he help at all? We've always been told that the Kyuubi is just a bundle of hatred, but what I witnessed says otherwise. He could have killed me too, but limited himself to only the attackers. And the request to take care of Naruto and Sasuke looks at least strange. Now, having thought about everything with a fresh mind, I come to the conclusion that not everything is so simple. Moreover, Sasuke is involved in this. And when did he have time? Crap. Well, how can I squeeze the answers to my questions out of these two? After all, during all the time I spend next to them, I realize that if they don't want to, then you won't expect anything from them. All these thoughts tormented me around the clock. Even the fact that Naruto woke up did not bring much relief on the third day. In general, she recovered very quickly, and I cannot explain this with anything other than the intervention of the Kyuubi, multiplied by the vitality of the Uzumaki. However, I was surprised not only by her, I was also amazed by Sasuke, who woke up only a couple of hours later. Apparently, that golden flash had much more useful properties than I thought. My knowledge of Irajutsu was only enough to scan superficially and understand that they would not die immediately. That is why I did not sound the alarm and send the raven to Hokage-sama. Although I wrote a report informing about the injuries. I hope I did the right thing. Despite the fact that the children woke up, I was in no hurry to ask questions, much less answer the ones they asked. I decided to wait until they had come to their senses enough so that I would not be able to avoid questioning them. Moreover, I was greatly distracted by the teams that arrived in response to my request for help. There was no longer any point in them, but it was not possible to send them away. However, I was glad that among them there were a couple of Irenans, who finally reassured me, saying that there was nothing serious, and now all that was left was to wait. Although who would know how hard it was for me to wait another week? It took all my restraint not to attack them with questions right away. However, I did not delay this, and as soon as they recovered enough to make an attempt to feign seem ridiculous, I began the interrogation. Is there anything you want to tell me? One question. How many emotions are on the faces of teenagers? Kyuubi said you will tell. NPOV Shursui. Is there anything you want to tell me? Shursui asked us a question with an inscrutable face, and I urgently wanted to hide deeper, and judging by Sasuke's squint, I wasn't the only one. However, our sensei, realizing that we were in no hurry to answer, finished us off with his next phrase. Kyuubi said you will tell. Yours. And what should I answer to this? Kurama doesn't respond to my cries, but recently I was able to go down into the subconscious and see why. It turned out that he was just sleeping. Apparently, my appeal to his powers was not in vain for him, and that's bad. We are now more vulnerable than ever. All that remains is to improvise. Why did you decide that it was Kyuubi? I looked at him innocently. There is only one Bijou in Konoha, Ninetales. Shursui chuckled at my statement. In addition, the carriers of the others are known and always visible. What, even Sanbai? I was truly surprised. No, Shursui shook his head and added with a grin. Only Sanbai has. Only 3 tails, and yours clearly has more of them, because you haven't lost your human appearance, and there hasn't been a complete release. This is all? I arched my eyebrows skeptically. No, again a malicious chuckle, and Shursui adds. I already saw the Kyuubi almost escape from your mother once, Naruto. I won't forget my feelings then, and during the battle on the bridge. I felt the same thing, only many times stronger, another terribly attentive and demanding look, and he asks with pressure, you still don't want to tell me anything? I look at each other with Sasuke and understand that he has similar thoughts to me. It's impossible to say that we are not from this world, but we won't be able to remain silent either. You'll have to tell half-truths, but it's better than an outright lie. But how to do it so that he believes? I wonder if we can get out. The best option: play a question-answer game and let the sensei figure out the rest himself. Ask Shisui-san. I smile and hear Sasuke's barely audible chuckle. Apparently he understood what game I was playing. How long have you been a Jinchuriki? When did Sasuke find out about this? Shisui began to ask his questions, and I only now realized how burdened he was by this whole situation and that he could hardly restrain himself all this time. Why doesn't anyone know about this? Or rather, does Minato-sama know about this? Why did Kyuubi return to Prince so easily? Why, stop! I interrupted the flow of questions and, seeing that the sensei had fallen silent, continued. I answer in order. She grinned and said quickly, from birth. At 13 years old. Don't know. Don't know. Friend. Eh? Shisui blinked stupidly at my revelation, and I decided to explain. Although not everything, Kurama, whom you all call Kyuubi, has been with me since birth, I said calmly. Naturally, I don't remember how it was sealed into me, but I have had the seal of the 8 trigrams for as long as I can remember, although it is usually not visible. This is why I prefer to wear clothes that don't show my midriff. I don't want problems or questions. Well, I found out that she was a Jinchuriki by accident. Sasuke picked up my speech. Yes, it would be surprising if, having met her for such a long time, I would not have noticed the strangeness. Besides, Kyuubi doesn't like our clan, and I had to put in quite a lot of effort for him to accept me as Naruto's boyfriend. Sasuke finished calmly and gave the floor to me. As for why no one knows about this, I shrug and continue. I don't know. Perhaps there is a gag order, or perhaps this ritual was performed in secret from my parents. Who knows? I chuckle. At least I'm sure that Toussaint doesn't know anything about it, but I don't feel like checking. And it's not important for me, because Kurama helps me and doesn't try to harm me. Not trying to harm, right? Shisui asked in a somewhat pitiful tone. Minato-sama doesn't know anything? And how could this happen? Don't know, I answer honestly. It's enough for me that he is always with me and helps. And then, Sen, I shrug and turn away. I myself am to blame for my mistrust. Besides, I don't have all the power of the Kyuubi. Most of it is still in Kachan. Although, considering the rate of destruction of her seal, realizing that I had let it slip, I bite my tongue. Well, finish, Naruto, Shisui hurried me in a gentle voice. It's not yet noticeable, but the seal of restraint on Kachan is weakening every day, I answered reluctantly. I learned about this myself from Kurama. Most likely it will be broken before birth. What? Shisui asked in a hoarse voice and perking up, corrected himself. Does Hokage-sama know? Yes, he and I talked about it, and I volunteered myself as the next Jinchuriki. I nodded my head and, looking pleadingly at the sensei, added, in this regard I have a request. Which? The guy squinted, figuring something out in his mind. You know that after the bijou is removed, the Jinchuriki dies? I asked, and waiting for a nod, continued. There is an opportunity to avoid this, but for it I need to be able to enter someone else's subconscious. For what? Judging by the way Shisui's eyes widened for a moment, he was surprised. Fight, and when Sasuke said quietly, Who knew about my plans? Sasuke is right, I agreed. To protect Kachan, I must defeat the Kyuubi inside her, and the easiest way to do this is in the subconscious, where everything depends on willpower and self-confidence. Well, you defeat him in Kushina-sama's subconscious, and then what? Shisui asked interestedly. Apparently, he took my words about breaking the seal in the near future seriously, and was now trying to find a way out. I hope it was not in vain that I decided to trust him. There is a connection between my Kyuubi and Kyuubi Kachan, I began to explain. With my help, he will be able to absorb almost all the chakra and, most importantly, subjugate the mind of the double. This will allow Kachan to have only pure chakra, and there should be no problems with it. But this will not solve the problem with Kyubi, Shursui noted. Will remove? I shook my head negatively. My Kurama recognized me as his friend. If you want, I can take an oath that while he is in me, he is not dangerous to others. You're not telling me something, Shursui answered after thinking a little. However, don't lie. Okay, I'll help. Thank you? I squealed joyfully and hung on the neck of the sensei, who was embarrassed by such a manifestation of feelings. But we will start training no earlier than in a week. Shursui cut off my joy, but seeing the offense on my face, he added, your SCHs should recover and get stronger. After all, judging by the diagnosis, your breakdown greatly expanded your chakra channels, and the treatment for the Kyubi did the same, but with Sasuke. The micro cracks in the canals should have healed by now, but it's better to be safe than sorry later. Therefore, training will begin in a week, not earlier. In addition, you need to tighten up your chakra control again, so meditate. Do you understand everything? Yes, sensei. We cheerfully reported. Then relax and don't think about anything, Shursui smiled at us. Help, albeit late, and guards for the architect have already arrived, so our mission is already over. There is nothing holding us here anymore, but I decided to stay and let you heal your wounds. Rest and gain strength, he finished, and patting us on the head, left. How do you think? I asked Sasuke. Time will show, he shrugged in response. Now we can only wait. How I dislike the unknown. I winced. Me too, Sasuke chuckled. But we still can't do anything. So relax and have fun. I could only snort at this formulation of the question, but I could not disagree with him. We really had no choice but to hope that Shursui believed us. Therefore, we can only wait for our return to Konoha and Tusan's move. I'm sure that the sensei will let it slip, which means it's worth preparing for problems in advance. However, it is advisable that the conversation take place after I rid Kachan of the Kyubi, because there I can calmly talk with her.